You're listening to QCast, presented by Qcella Media. Please consider giving generously to Qcella's nonprofit mission. To find out more about our mission and to make a donation, visit our website at qcast.qcella.org. Your tax-deductible donation will help us continue bringing you quality podcasts just like this one.
I may be bruised, but I'm not broken. You can't take away my soul. You tried to tell me I don't count, but I know in my heart that's not true. So you cannot take me down that path. I'll make it without you. I may be bruised, but I'm not broken. My life counts for something, and you wake up and I'll be gone. You'll know that you were wrong. Welcome to my show, Shades of Gender. I'm your host, Terry Ryan. Thank you so much for listening today. We're going to be talking all about gender identity, including the transgender, cross-dressers, and the non-binary gender individuals who self-identify with these groups. The definitions of these individuals are often misunderstood and certainly misused. So our goal is to identify these groups, listen to their stories, learn about what they're doing and how they're doing in society. In spite of how the media may characterize and what others may select as their definitions, we're here to get beyond the labels, and our goal is to get to know the real people behind these definitions. So today, I am so thrilled to have Marilyn and Lois? Lowe's. Marilyn Lowe's, who is here from Oregon.
Portland.
And well, you can tell I don't know her well, so I can't pronounce her last name, and I don't know where she's from, but she's quite lovely, and she's a friend of Donna Kelly, who was on our last show. So I'm very happy to have you here. And actually, since I don't know anything really about you, I'd like to, first of all, we know you're from Portland, and I'm going to ask you, as I ask all my guests, and just to get our audience to get a kind of a clear idea, since it's radio and even if it wasn't radio, how you self-identify in the gender scale.
That's a question that's interesting for me to try to answer, because when I first started doing this, I guess I would say that I was a cross-dresser. But as time has gone by, I have evolved, and today I've transitioned. And so when people say, well, are you this or that? I say, I'm just me. I'm just who I am. And I present, if you see me on the street, as a woman. That's how I prefer to dress. That's how I enjoy dressing. And I try to present a feminine persona. So it's close to F, if you will, on the binary scale. But I was not born female.
Right. So when you, would you say then that, or very similar as we had discussed in other shows, did you start identifying as cross-dressing at a young age, like 5 or 6 years old? Or was
all I knew, well, I'm a bit older. I'm 76.
Wow.
So all I knew.
You look fabulous.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to show pictures. We'll show it on wherever we can get it, but on social media, but you look fabulous. Yeah.
So when I was about 4 or 5, I remember having this strange feeling that I wanted to be like a woman, or I liked women's things, or I liked feminine things.
Did you like dolls too, or was it just not really?
I didn't have a sister. I had 2 brothers.
Oh, there were no dolls in the house.
Yes, there were no dolls in the house.
Yeah, right. I forgot when you're 4 or 5 years old, you kind of go with what you had to play with, right? So it was very much boy existence. It's all boys.
But I had this strange feeling inside of me, which I always felt ashamed of. I couldn't figure out what it was.
Did you go, were you curious about your mom's clothing or your grandmother's? So
yes, I did.
I'm sure you felt ashamed. I don't know if you're Catholic.
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, thank goodness you don't have that, because you're going to feel ashamed about anything you do in your life, whether it's right or wrong. But So obviously you're looking over at, like, you wonder, why am I looking at my mother's, underwear
right.
or pajamas or negligee or skirts? Why
am I attracted to this?
4 or 5 years old? So you do remember early on having that kind of feeling.
At this point, we're talking maybe the late 1940s. Yeah. So
that's hard to believe. In 1940s, I mean, that was, LGBT. I mean, look at where we are today. We weren't even talking
about a desert. Yes.
Right. I don't even know. Even in the gay community back in the 40s, I don't think we were talking about being gay either. People were going to cocktail.
No.
Hollywood wasn't coming out. I mean, no one that was out there, even in Hollywood. Rock Hudson was out there. Being the man that he supposedly was on screen, and coming out to Palm Springs, where we're recording from, with his boyfriends. So
there was nothing out there.
You didn't even talk about anything.
No, there was nobody,
and no role models. No one out there. Again, Hollywood wasn't backed up on anything. Which whatever it is with Hollywood, it gives us at least something to hold on to and have a reflection of life, as I say movies are. So you didn't have any of that. So what did you end up, I guess, did you hold back then? You said, okay, I'm just going to put this aside and just be the boy or man that I am, and not even think about these clothes. So
just try to suppress those feelings.
Did you grow up around Portland, or was it someplace else?
No, it was actually in Cleveland.
Oh, Midwest too.
Midwest, so. And I remember.
What kind of family did you have?
I had two brothers, one who's a year younger than I am, and an older brother who's 4 years older than I am. And
did you come from a working class family or a professional?
No, my dad was professional. He was general manager of a tool supply company in Cleveland. My mother was a housewife. They did eventually divorce, and my mother had to go to work. I always felt kind of a Norman Rockwell upbringing because of the environment I grew up in. So that was
a lot of
wood-burning
fireplaces.
Snow, and there was a lake, and so in the summertime you would go swimming, and in the wintertime you go ice skating or play hockey.
Right. So really a real Midwest type of,
absolutely.
From the colorful leaves. I'm from Chicago, so I understand that quite well, and the ice skating outside until it got too cold. But so it was pretty, I guess, as you would say, normal.
Yeah, pretty normal.
Normal, and then you were the youngest or the middle child?
I was the middle child, but this thing kept rattling inside of me. And eventually, I went to college. And
what did you study when you were in college? What were you interested
business.
in? Business. Of course, right.
There
wasn't a lot back then. Yeah.
So I went, finished my undergraduate degree in '65, which is the time when the draft was going hot and heavy. We were going to Vietnam in a big way. So within a month, I got my notice to report for my physical. I passed.
You got drafted.
So I passed my physical, and I looked at my options. I had 30 days to look at my options. I eventually did something I was frightened, but I wound up volunteering to join the Army. In those days, they would guarantee your specialty if you signed up for the 6 years. You had 3 years of active duty and 3 years of inactive. And I was drawn to it because there was an older boy in the neighborhood who I heard had been in the military, and he had been in military intelligence, and he was living in France and wearing civilian clothes. So it's like you're in the military, but you're not. So in those days, you could enlist. So I went and talked to the Army recruiter, and he was telling me about all the armor and artillery and stuff. I'm going, no, I'm not interested. But what about this military intelligence? And he says, well, I can't tell you much about it, but we'll have to set up an interview. I was in Houston at the time with some colonel, I guess, in Houston, downtown. So I had this interview, and so they accepted me. I went through basic training, went through military intelligence school training. And there's two kinds of intelligence. There's like the CIA, area specialist, and then there's the FBI, which is we go get the bad guys. So the area they assigned me was area intelligence, which is you become a case officer and you try and recruit people. So anyway, so after the school, everybody was sent to language school, and I wound up in Monterey at the Defense Language Institute studying Japanese for a year. And then, lo and behold, they actually sent me to Tokyo for a little over a year. And
So what was your job when you got to Tokyo then?
I was a company clerk, but I wore civilian clothes the whole time.
Yeah.
I really had a day job. I had my evenings free.
So you had a lot of fun. What was Tokyo like were they ahead of us in terms of in that time? Were there clubs you could go to? Like, were there gay clubs in Tokyo back in 1965?
I never investigated because that was not something that I really
could do.
Yeah.
At that point, were you just living your life in the military as a man?
Yeah. And while I was in Monterey studying Japanese,
studying Japanese itself is a full-time job. I mean, you had a lot to do. This is another point of my program is, as I said, you're just not like, just because you're transgender or you're thinking of the fact that you really have a femme side, or you maybe should be living your feminine gender self. But you have other things going on in your life, right?
Right.
I mean, you went to college, you're in the Army, you're learning Japanese, you're living in Tokyo. I mean, you're living life.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, one of the things that happened to me while I was in Monterey is I would go up to San Francisco on the weekends with a bunch of friends, and we'd go to the singles bars in the Marina District in those days. And I met a woman, and we decided to get married. But I still remember this. So we're in her parents' she lived in Oakland. We're in her parents' kitchen, and we're talking about marriage. And I remember a little voice inside of me going, "What about me? What about me?" And I'm thinking, "Oh, shut up. I'll get married and this will go away."
Wow. That's really profound. So you really felt like your inner self was saying,
"Yeah,
your
wait
inner
a minute.
self, wait a minute.
Don't do this." Yeah.
Don't do it without talking to her, or don't do it at all.
Don't do it at all. What about me? In other words, this part of me is going to be totally suppressed or put aside.
Especially
it has been.
In this relationship, particularly. How old were you at the time when this happened? 20s?
20s, probably 23 or so, 24 maybe.
And you didn't listen. You got married.
No, I got married.
Yeah.
And so I was married for almost 27 years.
And you went the route and had kids, came back
to the
States.
I went to graduate school, had a career.
What were you doing when you were working back here?
I was a banker, international banking. And but one of the things that triggered where I'm at today is that we socialized with about 8 other couples on a monthly basis. And at the September get-together, one of the couples suggested that since the following month was Halloween, October, wouldn't it be fun if we all came in costume? So my spouse, who had no idea about this, and I really didn't know exactly, but she, on the way home, we were talking about what costumes would we wear, and she said, wouldn't it be a hoot if I went as a man and you went as a woman? And I thought, oh my God.
There you go. There's your opportunity. I know. That happened to me, by the way.
Okay.
That's what my ex said.
Really?
Yeah, yes. He came out on Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah. I dressed as a man and he dressed as a woman. And
my gosh.
never quit. I mean, except I like dressing as a woman too.
Yeah. But so I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about makeup. My first wife didn't wear makeup specifically. And so I went to a costume shop and found somebody who did drag part-time and said, well, this is how you cover a beard. And So I bought these products. And the night before, I thought I'd better do a trial run. I don't know how long it's going to take me. So I was upstairs in the bathroom and the mirror's in front of me and I'm putting on makeup and stuff. I realized I had no eyebrows. I'd never noticed that about myself. Anyway, so I had to ask my had to ask my dog.
And they weren't cleanly plucked either.
Oh no.
I mean, if whatever you had, they were sparse and they weren't arched well.
Yeah.
Right. So
correct.
Here you are looking, thinking, because by the way, they do frame your face. Your eyebrows are very important.
So I'm facing the mirror, and the wig is off to my right hand side, and so I bent my head down to put the wig on, and I slowly, I adjusted it, and then I slowly lifted my eyes up to see what this is all going to look like. And
give us a visual on the wig. What kind of wig did you have?
Dolly Parton. This is a country This was
I
a group
see.
that did country western dancing. So
I see. Okay, so it's a country western party, and you were
Yeah.
playing Dolly Parton.
yeah, well, kind of, sort
Kind of. So you had that big, flowy,
Yeah, big blonde all over,
blonde. Okay. Did you have
So-
the breasts to go with it back then? Or?
No,
Okay.
no. It was just a
just
denim skirt and some blouse from, Goodwill.
Right. So what did you feel when you first looked at yourself in the wig?
I'll tell you, I have never believed in this sort, but it was an epiphany.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, what I saw was not the wig and all that. I just saw basically my face, and I just stared.
Oh.
And I mean, talking about it makes me cry almost.
Wow.
Because
it was like that little girl
I-
came out, didn't she?
I suddenly go, that's what
me.
this is me. This is what. So I knew at that point in time I couldn't put this genie back in the bottle.
Mm.
So
And how old do you think you were at the time? Where were you in your
I
marriage
was
at
in
this point?
I was maybe 51, 52.
And your kids were already grown, and
Yes, my son was in college. My daughter was a senior in high school.
so they were pretty much
Yeah.
on their way.
Mhm. So I thought to myself, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Because this is
She's out. Yeah, you're
and
out.
I just wanted to be dressed all the time.
Right.
I wanted to be me.
So then it became
So
just yourself.
about 2 months later, in January, the kids and my daughter was out of the house, and I said to my spouse, I said, I need to talk to you. And that was a hard conversation.
So how was that? I obviously your wife never knew
Right.
about it, and again, this is not you can't beat yourself up. I mean, my goodness, this is the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. At least in my experience, 95% of the people in that age group for sure weren't talking about it because
Yeah.
they weren't sure themselves. I always said. I saw some angry ex-wives. Well, he wasn't honest with me. And I say, so how come you're not angry at your ex-husband? And I said, because he didn't know who he was. I mean, how can I be angry at him when he's he felt comfortable enough with me to trust me and that I was open enough. You're looking for that open woman who's not going to judge you. And the pain that he must have felt and the trust that he had to really just be himself in a very confusing time. So it's very painful. Again, though, on the flip side, here's your wife now who it's like the other woman. And I always say it's like akin to you having, and not only is it another woman in your relationship, it's her husband. So she's lost her husband to the other woman.
Yep.
And I think from having been a spouse of someone who's been in this community, that's the way I felt. I mean, I can tell you from the other side, when I saw my ex in a femme form, and not really even defining it ever, but knowing, I mean, I knew from the minute Halloween, I knew it. I looked at it and I said, he likes this too much. I mean, this is just didn't know how to put on I put on the makeup on him, and, I put on and I didn't have the beard stuff, but I remember thinking it was about 6'1" or 6'2", 180 pounds or 200, and then he has stilettos, and then, he was towering over me, and I'm like, we got to work. First I could think about, I got to work on him a little bit. We got to get a better look for him, but he loved it. So I do. I mean, and I know firsthand that everything aside, and I believed it, and you're confirming this, and I want to hear more about your story here, but that it is something that's innate. It's something that is part of who you are, and this wasn't just of all the things. My ex is a very successful real estate developer. I mean, he had plenty of things to do besides, decide he's going to be a transgender woman. I mean, it's just, it was, and it's very conflicting. So, and so many divorces and broken relationships because of the time. And I feel so hopeful that we're in a time now that we're able to get the word out. And as Donna Kelly said in our last interview, to talk about it ahead of time, which is really the courageous thing to do. But back in 1955 or 60 or 65, you just didn't do that because you weren't sure of who you were. It's like, why should I even put it out there if I don't even know what this is, and you're thinking, am I crazy? What is this?
I mean, the word out there in those days was transvestite, which to me sounded awful.
And that sounded so
had a
different
very
than
bad
who you were.
connotation, and that can't be me.
Right, or transsexual, which was
Yeah,
the other that
the
we were
other
talking
one,
about
yeah.
prior to being on the show. So tell me, how did you reveal this to your wife? I mean, I'm
So,
trying to help some of the spouses out there too. The show is
No,
really
so-
meant for everyone to have empathy and understanding.
So we talked, and I said, this is something has been rattling around in me, and I just want to do it, and I'm not going to be able to move away and just go back to where I was. And she was, obviously hurt, and
Did she blame you? Did she accuse you of lying, or did she just was she just in shock and didn't
she was
know what
just
to
in
feel?
shock, and I don't remember because this is about 94,
Mm-hmm.
1994. But ironically, not too long after I revealed that to her, through one of the local television stations, I heard about a support group for people like me, or what sounded like people like me. And so I went to a meeting, and
Was this like a Trias type of?
yeah, it
group,
was. It was
for-
called the Northwest Gender Alliance, but it wasn't the Trias related.
Right.
Um,
So did this group accept levels of gender identifying?
Yeah, most of the people that I
Really,
think
most of 'em.
identify probably as a cross-dresser, the occasional,
Right, because those groups are
they're-
actually probably more popular.
Yeah.
I mean, they were formed by, what is it, Victoria Prince?
I think so, yeah.
Was the early, it started actually ironically as a cross-dresser. You talk about, I think it was in the 40s, which was the whole Trias self-help mission for a place for the ladies to go as cross-dressers and be themselves, and a safe environment, and the camaraderie, which we all need in everything in life. And then she went on to actually have reassignment surgery and became a woman,
Yeah.
trans woman. So,
Well-
which kind of changed their whole, some people are still mad that there's this little debate within the cross-dressing community too.
Yeah, because I consider myself a trans woman because I've gone through the
and you have
surgeries.
had the reassignment surgery. So you got divorced, did you get remarried? And when did you actually start?
Yeah, so I got remarried several years later, and I met a woman who, one of the members of the support group, I said, when I first met that group, I said, where in this town can you go to feel safe to go shopping for clothes? And this person reached in their purse and pulled out a card of a lady at Nordstrom and said, go see this lady. She's not judgmental. She'll take real good care. So for about 5 years, I would occasionally shop with her. And at the time I first met her, she was married, but about 4 years later or so, she was divorced. And we would occasionally, if I came over there dressed, we'd go have coffee, or because she was on break, or she was going to lunch or something like that. So we did occasionally. But one time I was over there in the late afternoon. She says, well, I'm about to go to dinner. You want to go to dinner? I said, sure. So during the dinner, she said, have you ever thought about asking me out?
Oh.
And I said, no. She was beautiful, and I was always a little intimidated, but
Right.
she was great. But over that first 4 years, we got to know each other really well.
And she was your sales rep at
Yeah, at
Nordstrom for
Nordstrom's,
4 years.
yeah.
Right. And you
So-
see her maybe like 3 or 4 times a year and talk.
Oh, no,
right?
more often.
More often,
than-
oh.
because she was always someplace that I could go dressed.
Oh, I see.
So anyway,
So you ended up marrying her?
I ended up marrying her.
So she obviously knew all about you.
She
and
knew all
your
about
friends.
me, knew all about this.
And how long were you together?
Well, sadly, we were married for 7 years when she was diagnosed with lung cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And 3 years later, she passed away.
I'm so sorry.
So that was back in 2011.
You had 7 years of...
So we had 10 years altogether.
10.
Yeah. And so, what happened later in that year, at the end of 2011, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer and told that I was going to have to do something about it. It wasn't a wait and watch situation. And I opted for surgery in part because of the surgery experience that I had with my late wife, because she had surgery to remove the tumor from her lung. And they'd taken lymph nodes and did some microscopic evidence in the lymph nodes that the cancer had advanced outside her. So I wanted to know that it hadn't advanced outside the prostate. So I chose the surgery. And the surgery results are, impotence.
Right. So you did. Oh, I see. I got
so,
it. Right. So you did the surgery where they take they take out the prostate. The prostate totally, and then impotency is a problem with it.
Because it's right next to the nerve endings that control an erection. So and they can't avoid that. So anyway, I find myself in 2012. My spouse is gone. My kids are well on their own careers, and so I, after a while, started dressing again. Because for a while there I wasn't. Started dressing again and going out, and then I thought, well, I'll go to the grocery store. I go here. So pretty soon I was living my life, but dressed.
Is that the first time that you actually were? And again, it was years after your wife had passed away. But when you were married to her, were you more not? You were dressing more of a cross-dressing type of experience.
Yes.
I mean, your femme self certainly was there, but it wasn't 100%.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
She. You were her husband, and
and her side of the family didn't know.
Right. And she obviously, you had a great relationship. She knew, totally accepting, but you had, I'm sure, some kind of boundaries in your life that worked for everything. But
she made a statement one time. Don't forget, I married a man.
Right.
So that's not that kind of sets the.
Well, this is why we're doing the show, because everyone is different, and relationships are a whole nother one that I really want to explore. First, I want to let our audience hopefully learn about who the groups are, the different shades within those groups, and then talk more about the relationships, because every relationship is different, and who's to say what a healthy relationship is, and who's to define it for yourself. So it worked for you, and I'm sure you felt like you were being you.
Well,
right? Or did you not?
I think, quite frankly, at some point, because this never decreases. If anything, it intensifies, at least in my experience.
So the more you're out presenting, the more you're living.
Yeah, the more and so it possibly could have been an issue if she had lived.
I see.
So
to the point, as I said, and this is why people don't understand why people in their 70s or 80s, when no one was coming out of anywhere, they're living in the shadows, hiding in their bedroom, or if they have a wife who's involved, no one's talking about anything. And just doing it, and hard feelings and all that stuff. So here you go. I always said, please cut the community some slack, because you have to live it. You finally got out of the shadows. You've got a relationship, and now as you're out presenting your femme self, then you became that female that you had a very strong hunch that you were, but that you became. But not everyone is different.
Yes,
right?
They are.
And they need to be out, I think, or be able to have some normalcy in their society besides sitting in their bedroom by themselves on a business trip, cross-dressing in heels. I always felt so sorry for people that had done that, or not really being able to talk, to having a really honest relationship, right? So you had the reassignment surgery, and again, after you had the prostate cancer and had your prostate out.
Yeah, about 3 years after I had that, I started really contemplating transitioning full-time with surgeries and all that, and called my healthcare provider and told my GP, I said, do you have any services for people that are transgender? And he told me, he says, well, call the mental health department.
Oh, great.
But
that wasn't the answer you wanted.
Well, I was surprised by that, but I called the mental health department, and they asked a bunch of very good questions. And they said, okay, I'm going to refer you to a gender therapist. So I had 4 meetings with a gender therapist, and he was ready to write a letter, which he did, saying if she wants to go on hormones, she should. And anyway,
it was all positive.
It was all
experience.
positive.
So we're running out of time, so I just want to wrap up.
Yeah, it was very positive.
But very,
experience.
very positive. which says that by the time you actually did go out and do this, is that you had your reassignment surgery, that you had more of a positive experience that maybe you might have not had 10 years ago, and also the surgery itself.
No, and they in fact have a specialty group right now to work with people like myself. So that's one of the things in the medical profession that's really been evolving in my mind.
Right.
Is and presents a wonderful.
There's someone out here in the deserts from Seattle who lives in my complex that it was a forerunner, a gynecologist that has been doing reassignment surgery, both male to female and female to male for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, he's an icon. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm going to try to get him on the show just to talk about some of his early experiences, because he really was the icon when no one was doing it, or it's like the old abortion where you had to go in the back alley and people were dying or they're killing themselves because they couldn't do it. So anyway, I want to have you back. Okay.
Okay.
There's still, I seem to never
Okay.
get to any of my questions, but I really appreciate you being on the show today, Marilyn. I really
if
do.
I'm here, I'd love to come back.
Yeah,
so
please
I've
do.
enjoyed the conversation very much.
Come
Thank
back
you.
to Palm Springs. I mean, you
Well,
can come back.
I've been coming back every fall for
Okay.
several years now, so it might be a year from now.
Oh boy, well I hope we're still around. So,
I hope so, too.
Maybe I'll take a special trip out here or something.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll come back in the spring.
And congratulations for letting that little girl turn into a beautiful
thank you.
woman. And
Oh,
it's
thank you.
Really, it's very, very nice to have you on
Thank
the
you.
show. Thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone for joining me today. I'm humbled to be part of this conversation on gender identity, and I invite you to keep listening. You can find the previous shows on KGay 106.5 or Coachella. I am also going to continue to look for interesting stories. So if you'd like to reach me personally, you can contact me at my email at Terry, Terri, Lee, Lee, Ryan, Ryan, @ gmail.com. Thank you so much and have a great night.